Hey, welcome back. Now, we're implementing death, and one thing you'll notice is that if the enemy is dying and we manage to get a stun accomplished, then the enemy will play the stun animation instead of the rest of the death animation. So let's see if we can repro this. See, there we go. I killed the enemy, and the enemy started playing the death animation, and then I continued to shoot the enemy and got a stun, and then the enemy played the stun animation and never reached the end of the death animation, so the enemy was never destroyed. So we can fix that because we created a Boolean called BeDying. And because we created this Boolean here in C++, we can refer to this to know if it's an appropriate time to allow the enemy to become stunned. Now here in enemy.cpp, in the bullet hit implementation function, we're checking to see if we should stun the enemy. And that's based on this random number called stunned, which we're checking to see if it's less than or equal to stun chance. Then we play the hit react front montage and we set stunned to true. Now here in bullet hit implementation, what we're doing is we're playing an impact sound and spawning some impact particles, and then we show the health bar once again, as well as calculate whether or not we should stun the enemy. Now, we don't need to show the health bar or stun the enemy if the enemy is already dead. So we're going to make a quick if check here and see if BeDying is true. And if it is, let's just return out of the function. Let's go ahead and compile this. Okay, so we're going to test this out. And in order to test it, I'm going to go to enemy BP and set the stun chance back to 1. So we're guaranteed to get a stun every hit. Now, as soon as we kill the enemy, we should be able to continue shooting the enemy without getting the stun animation. Let's give this a try. All right, that looks great. So that takes care of preventing the stun animation from playing and showing the health bar once we've already killed the enemy. Now, before we wrap this up, I'm going to address the issue of destroying the enemy at the end of the death animation. Some games allow the enemy to exist in the world for a few seconds after death and then destroy the enemy. This is done usually with a timer, and we can implement this in the enemy class if we want to by creating a timer handle and setting a timer in the die function. So let's go ahead and implement that just so we know both ways to handle death. We can destroy the enemy instantly, or we can set a timer and destroy the enemy later. So we'll create an ftimer handle, and this will be called death timer. And we need a float for the time, and we're going to call this death time. Now, I'll copy the uProperty from death montage just to make this blueprint read write, edit anywhere, and I'll give this a comment and say time after death until destroy. Now all we need to do is go into our finish death function. So this finish death function gets called at the end of the death animation. Now instead of calling destroy here, we can simply set the timer. And we also are going to want to pause the animations so the enemy doesn't get back up into the idle pose. So first we're going to say get mesh, and bPauseAnims can be set to true. And then from here, we'll simply set the timer. So we're going to say get world timer manager, set timer, and this will take the timer handle. This will be death timer. Now here in the fifth overload, we can pass in a user object. We'll just use this. And for the function, we'll need a function callback. Let's go into enemy.h and add a protected function. It's going to be void destroy enemy. And in destroy enemy, we can place any number of things in here, but for now, we're just going to call destroy. And we're going to go ahead and mark this as ufunction, so this will work properly. And for the callback function, we'll pass in aEnemy destroy enemy. And for the time, we'll pass in death time. Now, we can give death time a default value. Let's go ahead and add it to the constructor here. Give it a value of, say, 4 seconds. So now we're setting this timer instead of destroying the enemy, and we're pausing the animations for the mesh. Let's go ahead and compile this. Okay, so let's go ahead and kill the enemy and see how this works. And the enemy stays around for a few seconds and then finally is destroyed. Excellent. All right, so that's going to wrap this up. I'm going to go ahead and go into enemy BP, search for stun chance, and set this back down to about 0.3, 0.35, something like that. And we can go ahead and close that. All right, I'll see you in the next video.